Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today we're embarking on, well, an incredible journey, really, right into the heart of some ancient wisdom traditions. We're exploring two really powerful meditative practices that promise not just peace, which sounds good enough, right, but profound insight, too. We've got some fascinating source material to work with, excerpts from a text called Shamatha and Vipassana, joint practice. And it really lays out this intricate dance between these two fundamental approaches. Shamatha, which often gets translated as abiding in peace,
Or calm abiding, yeah.
right, calm abiding, and Vipassana, or penetrating vision.
Indeed. And what's so compelling, I think, about these texts is how they manage to distill, centuries of meditative thought. They don't just give us clear definitions, clear distinctions between the practices, which is useful in itself, but they ultimately reveal this deep, inseparable connection. It shows us how these paths that maybe seem quite different on the surface, they're actually, two sides of the same coin. So our mission today really is to unpack these concepts. We want to understand their individual strengths, their challenges too, and really grasp why together they form such a complete and transformative journey for anyone seeking deeper awareness.
Exactly. And this deep dive, it isn't just about, learning definitions off by heart. It's more about uncovering a kind of practical roadmap. We're going to try and clarify what these practices truly entail, how the mind and body prepare for them.
That's crucial. And maybe most importantly, why understanding their joint practices, well, absolutely essential for navigating the complexities of our inner world, for finding some freedom from all that mental noise. So get ready, because I think some long-held assumptions about meditation might just get a fascinating twist today.
Definitely. Let's get into it.
Okay, so let's start by laying a really clear foundation, shamatha, often translated, as we said, abiding in peace or calm abiding. Now, for someone who might just have a general understanding of, say, mindfulness, what specifically defines shamatha according to these sources? What's the core? Right. Well, at its very core, shamatha is fundamentally about cultivating a stable, focused mind. It's about establishing what the sources call a state of inner purity. And it's not just, a fleeting feeling of calm like you might get from just sitting quietly for a minute. It's really about training the mind to remain unwavering. There's a quote from the Sutra of Precious Clouds that puts it very simply. Meditation of abiding in peace is one-pointed concentration.
One-pointed concentration. Sounds simple.
Exactly. But this isn't just like fleeting focus. It's about actively holding the mind in a state that's free from conceptual elaboration. The mind consciously, deliberately abandons attempts to create mental constructs, stories, ideas about whatever it's focusing on. Imagine trying to calm a turbulent stream, perhaps. Not by forcing it or damming it up, but just by allowing the silt to naturally settle down.
I like that, allowing it to settle. So it's kind of like learning to keep this wild, scattered mind on a leash, maybe, bringing all that mental energy into one single steady point. Vasubandhu, who's a pivotal figure in Buddhist philosophy, he elaborates on this. He says something like,
Yeah, his definition is really helpful. He says, when you are able to hold the mind's attention on a chosen object, it remains fully collected. If you are unable to do so, it is scattered. When the mind is able to continuously fix attention on a specific object, this is meditation of abiding in peace.
Continuously fix attention. Okay, so that sustained, unwavering focus is critical. And a really key point the texts make, you mentioned it briefly, is that this chosen object for shamatha practice must be outside conceptual thinking. What exactly does that mean, outside conceptual thinking?
It's a crucial distinction, yeah. There's this dialogue in the explanation of the sutra revealing the meaning, where Maitreya asks the Buddha about the objects for shamatha, and the Buddha's reply is very direct. Only one, an object outside conceptual thinking.
Only one, okay.
It really highlights this singular, non-conceptual nature of the focus. It means you're not reflecting on the object, you're not analyzing it, you're not building a story around it, you are simply resting your attention with it. So for example, rather than thinking about your breath, is it deep enough? Am I doing it right? Concepts like that. You're simply experiencing the raw sensation of the breath itself without any mental commentary.
Okay. So it's like pure, unadulterated attention, just the direct experience.
Exactly. Unburdened by mental constructs.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so if shamatha is all about this profound stillness, this letting go of concepts to achieve that single-pointed focus, then vipassana, or penetrating vision, well, it sounds like it must be doing something very different indeed. How does it actively engage the mind when shamatha is all about letting go?
It absolutely does something different, yes. But, and this is key, it's entirely complementary. While shamatha establishes that ground, that foundation of profound peace and stability, Vipassana then builds upon it. It uses that stability. It has this active investigative quality. The texts define it pretty clearly. While abiding in the state of peace, one applies analytical investigation and directs it towards all known phenomena. This is the practice of penetrating vision.
Okay. So the calm abiding, the shamatha state, it isn't the end goal in itself. It's more like a stable, clear launch pad for this deeper inquiry.
Precisely. A launch pad, or maybe a lens, as you said earlier. The Sutra of Precious Clouds confirms this. It says, meditation of penetrating vision is full awareness of reality achieved through analytical investigation.
Through analytical investigation.
Yeah, and this is where the real shift happens, right? It uses that state of peace, that clear mind, to investigate reality. But crucially, it does this through the intentional application of conceptual thinking.
Right, that's the critical distinction you mentioned. Shamatha avoids concepts, Vipassana intentionally applies them. That sounds like you're actively probing reality, using your thoughts.
You are. You're engaging your intellect, your discernment. The Adornment of Sutras puts it very succinctly. When you analytically investigate phenomena, this is the practice of Vipassana. And Vasubandhu clarifies the aim of this investigation. He says, when you conduct an analytical investigation of phenomena with the aim of comprehending reality, this is meditation of penetrating vision.
With the aim of comprehending reality.
Okay.
So it's purposeful analysis.
Exactly. And just like Shamatha has its specific type of object outside concepts, Vipassana also has its object. In that same text, the explanation of the sutra revealing the meaning, Maitreya asks the Buddha about Vipassana's objects. Buddha replies, only one, an object of conceptual thinking.
An object of conceptual thinking. So here, the object is the concept or the phenomenon you're actually investigating.
Precisely. You're taking a concepts like impermanence or selflessness or the nature of an emotion, and you're turning the focused beam of your attention, sharpened by shamatha, onto that.
Okay, wow. So shamatha.
Yeah.
Focus on an object outside concepts, cultivating pure attention. Vipassana. Focus on an object of conceptual thinking, actively investigating it.
Right.
That really is a fundamental methodological split right there, isn't it?
It is. And what's truly fascinating is how the texts highlight this core difference. Shamatha is about letting go, cultivating a mind that simply rests, that simply is without constructing or defining. Vipassana, in contrast, actively engages with conceptual thinking. It uses it as a sophisticated tool, almost like a scalpel for inquiry and analysis. There's a quote from the Essential Instructions on Metta that nails this. Shamatha meditation allows one not to use conceptual thinking when perceiving the external manifestation of phenomena and their nature, while the Vipassana meditation uses conceptual thinking for the same purposes.
Right. So one avoids thought for perception, the other uses thought for perception.
Exactly. And getting this initial clear distinction is really crucial for understanding the individual function of each practice. It sets the stage beautifully for how they eventually need to work together.
So it's clearly not just about what you're doing in meditation, the technique itself, but also how you're able to do it, the state of your mind and body. The text really emphasized something called flexibility of both body and mind as being, well, absolutely indispensable. For someone maybe just starting out or even experienced practitioners, why is this idea of flexibility so central? And what happens if you don't cultivate it, if your mind stays kind of rigid?
It's absolutely foundational. You really can't overstate its importance according to these sources. The texts are very clear. This mental and physical flexibility is the prerequisite for achieving the genuine results. Stages of Meditation, Book 2, puts it bluntly, until we develop sufficient flexibility of body and mind, we will not achieve the ultimate results of the practices of abiding in peace and penetrating vision.
The ultimate results.
Okay. Exactly. Without this flexibility, the text says, we might gain certain experience of these states. Maybe, a fleeting moment of calm, a brief flash of insight, but not their final transformative results. It's like maybe trying to become a master carpenter without ever developing the dexterity in your hands.
Ah, right.
Yeah.
You can understand the theory, you can read the blueprints, but you can't actually build the thing properly.
Precisely. The mind needs to be supple, responsive, pliable, not rigid, not easily distracted, not stuck in its ways.
That's a really powerful distinction, just having an experience versus achieving a definitive result. It sounds like this flexibility is kind of the bridge you have to cross to get to true mastery. So, okay, how do we actually develop this flexibility? What stands in our way? What are these inner turbulences, as the outline called them, that we need to overcome in our practice?
Well, the texts are actually very specific about this. They pinpoint particular obstacles or hindrances that directly block this flexibility from developing. For Shamatha, for developing that calm abiding, the ultimate result is achieved, it says, when we become capable of overcoming sluggishness and sleepiness.
Sluggishness and sleepiness.
Well,
That dull, heavy feeling.
exactly. Those states where the mind becomes dull, heavy, foggy, prone to drifting off into actual drowsiness or just a kind of mental fog. Imagine trying to focus intensely when you're incredibly tired or just mentally lethargic.
Yeah,
It's almost impossible, right? Your mind just won't cooperate.
right. And for Vipassana, the insight practice, what blocks that?
For Vipassana, the ultimate result is achieved when we overcome excitement and anxiety.
Excitement and anxiety. So the opposite extreme,
Yeah.
like a buzzy, agitated mind.
Precisely. These refer to mental agitation, restlessness, a mind that's constantly jumping around, conceptualizing, planning, worrying, analyzing things it shouldn't be. It's the opposite end of the spectrum from sluggishness, a mind that's just too busy and turbulent to gain any kind of clear, stable insight.
So it's not some vague, abstract idea then.
Yeah.
The path to flexibility is directly tied to managing these very practical, very specific mental states.
Yeah.
Dullness on one side, agitation on the other. It makes the practice feel much more tangible, actually.
Exactly. And the link is made absolutely explicit. The explanation of the sutra revealing the meaning states that mental and physical flexibility are fully developed only upon the complete elimination of sluggishness and excitement.
Wow. Only upon their complete elimination.
It means that developing flexibility isn't some separate abstract goal you aim for. It's the measurable outcome, the direct result of successfully reducing these two fundamental mental hindrances. And this, I think, raises a really important question for any practitioner, right? If these fundamental turbulences, the dullness and the agitation, are not genuinely addressed, not really worked with, can true stable insight actually emerge? Can real calm abiding actually take root? These texts suggest a very clear no.
Without that flexible, clear, balanced mind, our efforts are always going to be somewhat constrained, maybe. Our insights will be fleeting, unreliable.
That seems to be the message. The texts make it clear that true effective shamatha and vipassana require this mental agility, this pliability, and that comes directly from diligently tackling these very common, very human obstacles.
Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting, I think. Shamatha, this calm abiding, isn't just presented as one single static state you either achieve or you don't. It's actually described as a journey, a progression through different levels of focus and refinement. Our sources tell us there are three core aspects to shamatha. What are those? And how do they relate to a practitioner's progress?
Yes, that's right. The text breaks shamatha down quite helpfully into three aspects. First, there's transcendental peace, which is that deep sense of inner stillness. Second, there's bliss, a kind of profound meditative joy or contentment that arises from that stability. And third, crucially, there are the 9 stages of concentration.
The 9 stages, okay.
Yeah, while the peace and bliss are maybe the experiential qualities, the feel of a highly stable mind, these 9 stages provide a very practical, progressive, step-by-step roadmap for actually developing that stable concentration. We mentioned Vasubandhu earlier. He meticulously outlines these 9 stages. It shows a really clear path, starting from where most of us begin, with a pretty scattered mind, all the way to profound meditative absorption.
So these stages are like a detailed instruction manual almost for steadily taming and refining the mind's focus. Instead of just listing all 9, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Could you give us a sense of the journey through these stages? What does a practitioner actually experience as they progress? And what does that culmination feel like?
Absolutely. Let's try and capture the feeling of it. Imagine starting out and your mind is just constantly wandering off, right? That's stage 1, maybe just placing the mind. The initial stages, like stage 2, prolonged abiding, are about simply learning to direct your attention to your chosen object, say, the breath, and then gradually learning to sustain it there for longer periods. You'll spend a lot of time in stage 3, restored abiding, simply restoring your attention when it inevitably wanders off, gently but firmly bringing it back again and again.
Right, that sounds familiar. Lots of restoring.
Exactly. Then, as you progress, maybe to stage 4, thorough abiding, you find the distractions become fewer, less intrusive. The mind stays put more easily. Then comes stage 5, calming, where even subtle mental agitation, that background restlessness, begins to subside. You feel a deeper settling. After that, you start taking control, stage 6, where you can direct your mind with much greater ease, leading to full taking control, stage 7, where shifting attention becomes almost instantaneous and effortless.
Wow, okay. That's quite a development.
It is. And then stage 8 is one-pointedness. Here, the mind rests spontaneously, naturally on the object for extended periods with minimal effort. It just stays. And the pinnacle, the ninth stage, is meditative concentration, samadhi in Sanskrit. Here, the mind abides in perfect tranquility and clarity, completely free, finally, from both sluggishness and excitement. It's a profound state of effortless, unwavering presence, just pure, stable awareness.
That's an incredible progression. It really clarifies that one-pointed concentration isn't some starting point you just decide to have. It's a highly developed skill earned through practice. So what's the ultimate goal, then, of moving through all these stages? What does this meditative equilibrium, as the texts call it, really feel like? What does it enable?
Well, the Compendium of Abhidharma explains it beautifully, I think. It says, when we regularly establish the mind in a state of peace, directing all our attention to this, and as a result completely calm it, we acquire the ability to concentrate one-pointedly and develop meditative equilibrium. This signifies a really profound transformation. You move from having perhaps a chaotic, reactive mind, pulled this way and that, to one that is profoundly still, balanced, centered, and available, able to direct its full attention wherever needed, without effort or distraction. It's a state of inner poise and mental readiness. The mind is perfectly prepared, you could say, for that deeper inquiry of Vipassana.
Beautifully put. Okay, in Vipassana, the insight practice, it also has its own distinct structure, right? Its own methods for gaining that piercing insight. How does that unfold? What are its key components?
Yes, just as Shamatha has its progressive stages for building calm, Vipassana offers structured methods for analytical inquiry. They guide the mind towards deeper understanding, not just random thinking. The explanation of Sutra revealing the meaning outlines 3 distinct methods. When Maitreya asks the Buddha about the methods, the reply is 3 conceptual reflection, application of logic, and analytical investigation.
Reflection, logic, and investigation.
Okay. Yeah. And each method leads to a specific kind of penetrating vision, a specific way of knowing. First, conceptual reflection. This is like deep contemplation, really pondering something. It leads to penetrating vision born from reflection on the object of meditation. You're thoughtfully considering the nature of a phenomenon.
Like thinking deeply about impermanence, maybe.
Exactly. Second, application of logic. This method involves using reasoning, critical thinking, deduction. It leads to penetrating vision born from the application of logical consideration of unknown aspects of the mind. It's about discerning truths through logical examination.
So more like following a line of reasoning to its conclusion.
Precisely. And third, analytical investigation. This is described as a deeper, more systematic examination. It leads to penetrating vision born from analysis of aspects of reality related to the mind. Here, you're meticulously breaking down phenomena to understand their true underlying nature.
So it's really not just one single way to see into things, is it? It's more like a toolkit of mental approaches, almost like having different scientific instruments for exploring reality.
That's a great analogy, a toolkit. And within this toolkit, the stages of Sravaka's text outlines 4 distinct stages of practice for Vipassana. How do these build upon each other? What's the progression there?
Ah, yes, the 4 stages. These seem to guide the practitioner progressively deeper into the nature of reality, building a really comprehensive understanding. They are.
1. Defining all aspects of reality. This sounds like getting a clear, comprehensive map of phenomena first, identifying and categorizing things accurately.
Exactly. Getting the lay of the land. Then, stage 2, defining ultimate reality. Moving beyond just the superficial appearances to grasp the fundamental unconditioned nature of things, not just their conventional labels or existence.
Okay, so going deeper than just names and forms.
Oh, yes. Then, stage 3, investigating the concept of duality. This feels really crucial. Examining how our minds habitually create these distinctions and separations, self versus other, good versus bad, subject versus object, and seeing how these dualities actually shape our entire experience.
Understanding how we carve up the world.
Yeah. And finally, stage 4, comprehending non-duality. This is the profound realization, it seems, that these apparent distinctions we make aren't inherently separate or independently existent after all. It's the insight into the deep interconnectedness and the lack of inherent separation in all phenomena.
Wow. That sounds like an incredibly profound intellectual and experiential journey, from mapping reality to seeing beyond its apparent divisions.
It really does. And the compendium of Dharma adds even more detail to this process, doesn't it? It fills in some gaps.
It does. It describes Vipassana as developing through a systematic application of analytical investigation of the true nature of phenomena and how they manifest. So systematic application is key. And it's further aided, it says, by logical analysis of duality and non-duality, like we just discussed, but also by reflection on obstacles and conceptual complications, with the aim of establishing what should be avoided and what should be developed.
So it's not just intellectual curiosity. It's directly aimed at liberation, figuring out what causes suffering and what leads away from it.
Precisely. It tells us that Vipassana isn't just a passive observation or a random intellectual exercise. It's a disciplined, systematic inquiry aimed squarely at discerning reality and achieving liberation from suffering. And if we connect this back to the bigger picture, Vipassana emerges not as just one technique, but as this multifaceted, structured inquiry. It uses different cognitive tools, reflection, logic, analysis, to peel back the layers of reality. And crucially, the texts remind us, even when you're practicing these four stages, doing this deep analysis, the mind must ideally remain in that state of peace cultivated by Shamatha.
Right. The calm isn't abandoned. It becomes the stable platform, the clear lens for the insight work.
Exactly. The stability makes the insight possible, and the insight gives purpose to the stability.
Okay, now this is where we start to maybe challenge some common assumptions, or at least add some important nuance. It's pretty widely understood, I think, especially in maybe more introductory or exoteric teachings, that you absolutely must establish calm shamatha before you can possibly gain insight, vipassana. And the texts we're looking at, they certainly contain quotes that seem to support this initial, very linear view. They make it sound like a strict, step-by-step sequential path.
That's definitely a widely held perspective, yes. And for good reason, as many foundational texts do emphasize this order. The argument often presented, for instance, in the Adornment of Sutras, goes something like this. Relying on what has been done, we accomplish what is to come. The higher relies on the lower. The subtle level depends on the course. This order must be preserved.
Right. That sounds pretty hierarchical. Build the foundation first.
Exactly. And other well-known texts reinforce this. There's Letter to a Friend, which plainly states, we cannot attain penetrating vision without relying on abiding in peace. Seems quite definitive.
And wasn't there another one? Entering the bodhisattva path. That also echoes this, right? Directly advising the practitioner.
Yes. That one says, only through shamatha are we able to embark on vipassana and eliminate the conflict of emotional states, therefore first practice shamatha.
Therefore, first practice shamatha.
Okay, so it's really easy to see how this leads to a common misconception, isn't it? Some practitioners might mistakenly believe that shamatha must absolutely, under all circumstances, precede vipassana, and maybe even that you need perfect mental and physical flexibility before any vipassana is even possible. And that could be a huge block for someone just starting out, right? It could make them feel like they have to achieve this perfect ninth stage stillness before they can even think about looking for insight, which might take lifetimes.
It could certainly feel that way, yes. And this is precisely where our sources reveal a really fascinating and I think incredibly liberating nuance. It's not quite so rigid. Absolutely. This is where the deep dive really pays off, I feel. Because this correction, this clarification is genuinely a game changer for many people who felt maybe stuck or inadequate in their practice. These assertions that shamatha must always come first, or that perfect flexibility is an absolute prerequisite, well, they're not held as an absolute unbreakable rule in the deeper teachings reflected in these sources.
It turns out we can perform both practices, or at least aspects of them, even without having developed perfect ninth stage physical and mental flexibility.
That's such a critical point for accessibility, isn't it?
Yeah.
And for just encouraging people to keep going.
It really is. And the idea, which some might hold, that only the ninth stage of shamatha counts as true practice is also incorrect according to these texts. All 9 stages of shamatha, and indeed all 4 stages of vipassana we discussed, are considered true, valid practice. They all contribute to the path.
Okay. And why does this nuance matter so much? Why is it important not to be too rigid about the order?
Well, primarily because it prevents novices, or anyone really, from feeling blocked or discouraged. If you genuinely believed you had to achieve perfection in shamatha before even touching vipassana, many people would simply give up or feel perpetually inadequate. This understanding allows practitioners to gain experience, to dip their toes into both calm and insight, even if perfect flexibility isn't immediately there.
Right. It allows for a more organic development, maybe. Learning as you go in both areas.
Exactly. And the texts also clarify why this nuanced understanding makes sense. They point out that if there were an absolute rigid distinction with zero overlap or connection between the two, then there would effectively be no real relationship between them at all. They'd be two completely separate things, but they're profoundly interconnected.
And in fact, we have direct counter-evidence to the strict sequential view, don't we? From the Compendium of Abhidharma.
Yes, that text states something quite remarkable. It says, penetrating vision can be attained without abiding in peace, and one can abide in peace while applying penetrating vision.
Wow. Okay, that fundamentally shifts the perspective, doesn't it? It suggests a much more dynamic interplay, maybe even simultaneous practice is possible.
It's a really powerful assertion because it directly contradicts that rigid, sequential understanding. And the sources don't stop there. They provide further examples of this flexibility in practice. The treatise on Bhumi, for instance, notes something fascinating. Those who comprehend the Four Noble Truths can establish their mind in a state where penetrating vision can be attained without practicing abiding in peace beforehand.
Without practicing abiding in peace beforehand. So just understanding the core teachings, the Four Noble Truths about suffering and its end, that intellectual grasp itself can create an opening for insight, even before deep calm is established.
Apparently so, in some cases. It suggests that a profound intellectual or conceptual understanding can sometimes act as a catalyst, creating an immediate opening for Vipassana, perhaps even before extensive Shamatha is fully developed.
That's really fascinating. And then there's the example you mentioned earlier, the tantric visualization practices.
Right. Deity visualization, a common practice in Vajrayana Buddhism. This often involves both meditation with symbol, focusing on the visualized image, a shamatha aspect, and meditation without symbol, understanding the empty nature of the image, a vipassana aspect, within the very same session.
So they're happening concurrently or interwoven, not strictly one after the other.
Exactly. It clearly shows that shamatha doesn't always have to strictly precede vipassana. And the sources even mention, sort of anecdotally, stories of great siddhas, these highly accomplished spiritual practitioners, achieving profound vipassana without extensive prior shamatha training. And there's also the Kagyu tradition's perspective mentioned, the belief that one can sometimes attain vipassana simply by adopting the correct philosophical view, the correct understanding of reality.
So it really challenges that common, maybe oversimplified assumption. It shows a profound adaptability of these practices.
It really does. There isn't a strict one-size-fits-all order that applies to everyone in every situation. It truly depends on the individual practitioner's disposition, their prior understanding, the specific tradition or method they're using.
It suggests the path might be more tailored, more responsive than we sometimes think.
I think so. This flexibility emphasizes that the path to insight isn't necessarily linear for everyone. Sometimes a spark of insight might itself create the conditions for deeper calm, or vice versa. It encourages a more intelligent, flexible, and responsive approach to practice.
Okay, so we've established that Shamatha and Vipassana don't always need to be practiced in a strict linear sequence. They're more interconnected and flexible than that. But this raises a really crucial question. If Shamatha, the calm abiding, can lead to such profound states of peace and bliss, maybe even godlike bliss, as one text suggested, why isn't that enough? Why bother with the difficult analytical work of Vipassana? What happens if you only practice calm abiding? If you simply try to still the mind and leave it at that? What are the limitations of just seeking peace alone?
That's a crucial question, definitely. Because just peace, while obviously immensely beneficial and desirable, isn't considered the ultimate goal for complete liberation from suffering in these traditions. The Stages of Meditation, Book 1, paints a really vivid picture here. It says, the mind of an ordinary living being is constantly in a state of chaos. If we do not learn to establish it in a state of peace through meditation, we will not be able to eradicate our mental defilements and disturbing emotions.
Okay, so peace is necessary to even begin dealing with the chaos.
Yes, but here's the catch. While shamatha can effectively suppress disturbing emotional states, it allows for a degree of control. It makes us feel much calmer, more collected, less reactive. It's explicitly stated that it's not enough to get rid of them completely, to eradicate them.
Suppression versus eradication, that's a key difference.
It really is. It's like maybe pressing down hard on a jack-in-the-box. You can hold it down, keep the lid shut, but the spring, the energy, is still there, coiled up, waiting.
Right. As soon as you stop pressing, it pops back up.
Exactly. The underlying causes of the suffering, the root causes of the disturbing emotions, they remain untouched by shamatha alone.
So you might feel this deep sense of peace on the surface, but those deeper issues, those habitual patterns, those root causes of agitation and confusion, they're still lurking beneath the surface, just waiting for the right conditions to emerge again.
That's precisely the view presented. The text goes on to emphasize that many unconscious processes occurring beyond our awareness will remain untouched by this meditation shamatha alone, and we will not be able to free ourselves from the sufferings of birth, old age, and death.
Wow, so it doesn't reach the unconscious level.
It seems not, or not fully. Shamatha alone doesn't eliminate those latent mental defilements, the subtle biases, the deep-seated assumptions. And crucially, it doesn't free us from our karmic imprints and tendencies, those habits and propensities accumulated over countless existences that unconsciously shape our experience.
So shamatha is like essential mental hygiene, maybe. Clearing the ground, calming the surface.
Yes, exactly. It provides a necessary clearing of the ground, a temporary calming. But it doesn't dismantle the roots of suffering. It only temporarily suspends them.
Which is precisely why Vipassana becomes essential then, to dig up those roots.
That's the argument, yes.
Okay. And what about the other side of the coin? If you only try to gain insight, if you jump straight into analysis and investigation, trying to understand reality, but without first cultivating a calm and stable mind through shamatha, what's the risk there? You'd think more knowledge, more insight is always better, right?
It's true that insight is absolutely key, but the texts warn that without the stability provided by shamatha, that insight will be flawed, unstable, and ultimately ineffective for true transformation. It's like trying to, I don't know, perform delicate surgery with shaky hands or observe subtle astronomical phenomena through a telescope that's constantly vibrating.
Oh, okay. The data you get would be unreliable.
Exactly. The explanation of the sutra revealing the meaning provides that really powerful analogy we touched on. Trying to practice penetrating vision without first calming the mind is like taking a lamp outside on a windy day.
A lamp in the wind.
Right. In such conditions, it says, our experience of penetrating vision will be like a lamp flame flickering in the wind.
That's incredibly vivid. So you might catch these glimpses of truth, these flashes of understanding, but they'd be unstable, unreliable, blown about by every passing mental breeze, hard to truly integrate or trust.
Precisely. Your insights wouldn't be deeply rooted. They could easily be swayed by your moods, misunderstood through the filter of your existing biases, or just vanish as soon as the mind gets agitated again.
So without a stable, calm mind, any insights gained would be fleeting, unreliable, maybe even misleading.
That seems to be the risk. The mind would simply be too agitated to hold a clear, steady focus for that deep analytical investigation. Or it wouldn't be able to discern the subtle nuances of reality without projecting its own reactivity, its own hopes and fears onto what it's seeing.
Okay, so if we connect this to the bigger picture then, it becomes really clear why they're presented as two sides of the same coin. Each is incomplete without the other for achieving that ultimate goal of liberation.
Absolutely. Shamatha provides the stable anchor, the unwavering platform. Vipassana provides the sharp compass, the clear discernment needed to navigate reality. You need both the stability and the direction.
And together they form this beautiful synergy, right? A synergy of control and eradication, as the outline put it. One gives you the power to manage your mind's reactions in the moment.
Yes, the control.
And the other actually removes the very source, the root cause of those reactions over time.
Exactly. The explanation of the sutra revealing the meaning states this relationship very clearly. Through bringing the mind into a state of peace shamatha, we gain the ability to control our emotional states. That's shamatha's direct gift, the capacity to manage and calm the mind's turbulence. And then it continues. Through the development of penetrating vision vipassana, we learn to eliminate them at the level of subconscious processes.
Eliminate them at the subconscious level. That's the eradication part.
That's vipassana's unique contribution, going beyond just surface control to profound root-level eradication. Cutting the very roots of those disturbing emotions, those conceptual delusions, those misunderstandings about reality that cause suffering.
So, maybe. Shamatha calms the surface of the water, makes it still and clear enough so you can actually see down into the depths. And Vipassana is what then allows you to truly understand what you're seeing down there, to understand the currents, the hidden rocks, how it all works, and ultimately to purify the water itself.
That's a perfect way to put it. They build on each other, support each other, creating a profound and ultimately unshakable stability and clarity. There's that lovely quote from the Sutra of Moonlight that sums it up beautifully. Shamatha makes the mind unshakable, like a steady rock. Vipassana makes it unshakable, like a mountain.
Wow, unshakable like a mountain. That implies something incredibly profound, doesn't it? Moving from simply being unshakable in the face of, say, distraction, to being profoundly, fundamentally unshakable in your very understanding and experience of reality itself.
That seems to be the promise, yes. The cumulative strength, stability, and wisdom achieved when both are practiced effectively, in conjunction.
Okay, so if both shamatha and vipassana are so vital, and we now have a much clearer picture of their individual strengths, their limitations, and why they're both indispensable, how do you actually put them together effectively? When does this joint practice truly begin? How do you move from what might feel like two distinct exercises, calming the mind and analyzing reality, to a truly integrated, unified flow?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? How does the magic happen? Well, the sources indicate that the practices truly merge, or unite, when a certain level of mastery in shamatha is achieved. Specifically, it's said to happen when one reaches that ninth stage of shamatha meditation that we talked about, the stage of meditative concentration, or samadhi. When you're able to abide stably in that state, your mind is naturally undisturbed by those main hindrances, sluggishness, and excitement. And this creates the ideal, pristine condition for the analytical investigation of vipassana to arise.
Ah, so it's like having that perfectly clear, still pond we imagined earlier. It's finally ready to reflect the sky or whatever you direct it towards with absolute clarity and stability.
Exactly. The ground is perfectly prepared. Yeah. And at that peak of shamatha, the text suggests it's not like you're consciously thinking, okay, stop shamatha, start vipassana now anymore.
Right. It's not a mechanical switch.
Apparently not. The texts explain that the ability to practice vipassana, the insight itself, arises more spontaneously, naturally, without special effort, precisely because the two practices are so deeply interconnected. The stability allows the insight to dawn. The stages of Shravakar's text explicitly states this, quote, practices of shamatha and vipassana are combined when the ninth stage of meditative concentration is achieved. It goes on. At this stage, we aim to gain discriminating wisdom through which ultimate reality can be comprehended, and this naturally leads us to the path of vipassana. And here's the key part. In such conditions, the practice of vipassana no longer requires effort. Shamatha and vipassana unite into a single meditation practice.
Wow. No longer requires effort. That implies a seamless transition, doesn't it? Where the perfect calm of shamatha becomes the very ground, the very condition from which clear insight just spontaneously, effortlessly arises.
That's the description, yes. A truly profound experience, it sounds like, a state of perfect unity between calm and clarity.
Is there a specific term for this unification? This state where calm and insight are one?
Yes, the sources mention a Tibetan term for this, zung brel. Apparently, zung means unification or pair, and brel means interconnection or joining. So it's like an interconnected union.
Bro. Yeah.
And the stages of meditation, Book 3 gives a beautiful description of what this state feels like in practice. When the mind naturally abides in a state of meditative concentration, remaining unaffected by sluggishness and excitement, it clearly comprehends its own true nature. Let go of any effort, it advises, and simply maintain this state. This is the attainment of the unity of shamatha and vipassana.
Just maintain the state. Let go of effort. That sounds amazing.
It does, and the unity described here, this ombrel, it's portrayed not merely as, doing shamatha then vipassana sequentially, but as a simultaneous experience. It reflects a profound interconnectedness where the calm and the insight are no longer really distinguishable as separate acts. They become two facets of one single integrated experience of awareness.
Okay, this feels like a really key point, and it's another one that kind of shakes up those initial, maybe overly simplistic definitions we started with. While we initially defined shamatha as being fundamentally non-conceptual and vipassana as actively using conceptual thinking, the texts are now clarifying that this distinction isn't absolute, especially in their combined, unified practice. Is that right?
That's exactly right. While it's generally true, and a useful starting distinction, that shamatha emphasizes the absence of conceptual thinking and vipassana actively uses it, the sources are very quick to add that crucial caveat. However, it should be remembered that such a distinction is not absolute.
It's not absolute. Okay, why not?
Well, if we insisted on an absolute rigid distinction, shamatha never involves concepts, vipassana always does, we'd run into some logical problems when looking at the full spectrum of actual meditative practices described.
Like the example you gave earlier, the deity visualization in tantric practice. That seems like a perfect counterexample.
It really is. The source poses this directly. If shamatha absolutely excluded all concepts, how could we possibly visualize deities? Visualization clearly relies on using mental images, symbols, qualities, all of which are inherently conceptual.
Right, you can't visualize Avalokiteshvara without the concept of Avalokiteshvara, his form, his compassion.
Precisely. It would be illogical to claim we're not using concepts when mentally constructing and holding a complex deity image. So shamatha can involve concepts, at least in some applications.
Okay, and conversely, Can Vipassana ever be non-conceptual? Can insight happen without thought?
Yes, absolutely. The ultimate example given is the Buddha's own non-discriminating wisdom, Shanana. This is considered a form of pure, direct insight, completely beyond thought or concepts, an absolute form of penetrating vision.
So the highest insight transcends concepts altogether.
That's the idea. And even on the path, shamatha practice itself can sometimes involve concepts. For instance, using specific concepts or labels, like noting rising and falling with the breath, is actually quite common in some shamatha techniques. For developing mindfulness and maintaining attention, you're using a light conceptual touch to stay present.
Okay, so the initial distinction, shamatha, non-conceptual, vipassana, conceptual, serves a crucial purpose, right? It helps us define and understand the core emphasis, the primary mode of each practice individually.
Exactly. It gives us a clear starting point.
But in their sophisticated combined practice, especially in that state of zung brel, those lines blur. Or maybe it's better to say they weave together seamlessly. It's a profound shift in understanding, from seeing them as separate tools to seeing them as integrated functions.
Precisely. The experience, particularly in advanced stages or in practices like deity yoga, should ultimately be seen not as flicking between two separate practices, but as a single experience with two essential aspects. So when visualizing a deity, for instance, you have simultaneously the shamatha aspect, which is the stable concentration on the visualized object, holding the image steady and clear, excluding distractions, pure focus. And interwoven with that, the vipassana aspect, which is the simultaneous analytical investigation into the nature of this concentration itself and the nature of the visualized image.
So you're not just focusing on the image, you're simultaneously investigating
Oh.
what, like, its emptiness, its lack of inherent existence.
Exactly. Maintaining an awareness that both the object being visualized and the mental process of analysis itself lack any real, solid, independent existence. You're both creating the form with shamatha concentration and seeing its empty nature with vaishana insight, often in the same moment.
Wow. That's a profound level of integrated awareness, holding focus while simultaneously deconstructing the nature of that focus and its object.
It is, and this unified perspective really clarifies things, I think. It shows that shamatha and vipassana aren't ultimately disparate techniques you pick and choose between, but two fundamentally interwoven threads of one deeply integrated meditative experience. It challenges us to look beyond those initial rigid definitions and appreciate the dynamic, synergistic way these practices work together, especially in more advanced contexts, to achieve both profound stability and liberating insight. The real power lies in their seamless unification.
Wow. Okay, expert, this has been an incredible journey so far. We've gone from defining shamatha and vipassana, understanding their individual mechanics, tackling those common misconceptions about their strict order, and now seeing how they can actually fuse into this single, potent, unified practice, the Zong Brel. So the big question remains, what are the grand results? What are the ultimate fruits of engaging in both these profound practices, especially when they're integrated? What do we ultimately gain from this incredible combined path?
Well, the fruits described in the text are truly transformative, covering everything from purifying the mind right now to cultivating ultimate wisdom and even achieving enlightenment itself. The explanation of the sutra revealing the meaning makes this connection abundantly clear. It says quite simply, we purify our mind stream with shamatha.
Purify the mind stream. What does that mean, practically?
It refers to cleansing the mind from those various conceptual delusions we talked about, those mistaken ideas, distorted perceptions, unhelpful beliefs that cloud our understanding and cause suffering. Shamatha helps clear away that mental fog.
Okay. And vipassana, what's its primary fruit?
The text continues, we generate wisdom with vipassana. This isn't just ordinary knowledge, it's referring to the generation of discriminating wisdom, prajna in Sanskrit. This is that profound ability to see things exactly as they truly are, cutting through all obscurations, all illusions, to discern reality directly without distortion.
So one practice clears the path, removes the mental debris and delusion, and the other illuminates the path with this unclouded, discriminating wisdom.
That's a perfect summary. Combined, our consciousness clarifies, becomes more luminous, by eliminating those deep-seated karmic imprints and tendencies that habitually cloud our perception and drive our unskillful actions.
And the texts explicitly state that these two methods are directed against specific types of defilements, right? Those things that keep us stuck.
Yes, very specifically. In that same text, the explanation of the sutra revealing the meaning, Maitreya asks the Buddha, Victorious One, what is the purpose of shamatha and vipassana? And the Buddha replies, they are intended to liberate living beings from two types of defilements that lead to rebirth in lower realms. Those lower realms being states of suffering and limited existence.
And those two types of defilements are?
1. Conceptual delusions, the intellectual confusion, the wrong views, the misunderstandings about reality. And 2. Emotional defilements, the disturbing emotions like anger, attachment, jealousy, pride, ignorance in its active form.
So they tackle both the cognitive distortions and the emotional reactivity that keep us trapped in cycles of suffering, or samsara.
Precisely. And thinking about it, what could possibly be more compelling than a path that promises to unlock true reality and lead to enlightenment itself by directly targeting and liberating us from precisely these two fundamental types of defilements, the intellectual confusion and the emotional turmoil that bind us?
It's a comprehensive approach. Now, drilling down a bit, what are the specific, maybe more immediate benefits that shamatha, the calm, abiding practice, offers in this context, beyond just feeling peaceful?
Shamatha offers some very distinct advantages. The texts mention it helps us counter excessive attachment to sensual pleasures, which is a major source of distraction and suffering for many. It's also said to help develop higher knowledge or supernormal abilities, abhijna in Sanskrit, allowing for a more profound understanding beyond ordinary sense perception, though that's perhaps a more esoteric aspect. More practically, it directly addresses problems arising from passionate desire and obsession, which are significant emotional defilements causing immense turmoil. And, as we touched upon, through sustained shamatha practice, one can master those 4 stages of meditative concentration, the dhyanas, which are associated with profound states of bliss and mental refinement, often metaphorically described as being like the experiences in God realms in Buddhist cosmology.
That's a powerful set of benefits, culminating in a profound sense of well-being and mental control. Letter to a Friend elaborates on this bliss, doesn't it? Saying something about eliminating desire and sorrow.
Yes, it says, the practice of samadhi concentration of the 4 stages allows us to eliminate excessive desire, euphoria, craving for pleasures, and sorrow. Through this, we attain bliss similar to what gods experience, who dwell in the world of forms. It emphasizes that relief from emotional extremes.
And didn't Atisha's lamp for the path to enlightenment also mention acquiring special abilities through mastering shamatha?
Yes, it reinforces that point, stating, the yogi who has mastered shamatha will acquire special abilities, indicating that profound mental faculties, like exceptional clarity or focus, are seen as a direct fruit of its mastery. Also things like physical and mental flexibility we discussed earlier.
Okay. And Vipassana. What are its specific contributions, both intermediate and ultimate?
Vipassana, while also contributing to immediate happiness and harmony because understanding reality reduces conflict, has the ultimate aim, according to the texts, of leading to the transcending of the 3 ways of existence.
Which refers to?
That refers to the different realms within samsara, the cycle of rebirth driven by ignorance and karma, the desire realm, the form realm, the formless realm. Transcending these means liberation from the cycle altogether.
And this liberation is achieved how?
Through comprehending the true nature of all phenomena, that deep insight fundamentally alters one's relationship with reality, cutting the chains of attachment and aversion and liberating one from these conditioned cycles of existence.
And so the ultimate goal, the absolute pinnacle, when you combine both of these practices effectively, is nothing less than enlightenment itself. Buddhahood.
Precisely. That's presented as the final and most profound result of the combined, unified practice of shamatha and vipassana. The texts are absolutely unequivocal on this point. The Sutra of Transcendent Wisdom, summary, states very clearly, all happiness of all Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Shravakas, and Pratyeka Buddhas, gods, as well as all other beings, is born from supreme discriminating wisdom.
Born from supreme discriminating wisdom, which is the fruit of Vipassana, grounded in shamatha.
Exactly. It underscores the absolutely pivotal role of the wisdom cultivated through Vipassana, which itself requires the stable grounding of shamatha to be effective.
And for those perhaps less familiar, a bodhisattva is someone dedicated to enlightenment for the sake of all beings, right? Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas are other types of awakened beings who have reached high levels of realization.
Correct. And the texts continue to reinforce this link to Buddhahood. Stages of the Bodhisattva path states, a bodhisattva who performs meditation practice and is able to perfect the 6 paramitas will attain the state of a Buddha.
And the 6 paramitas, or perfections, include meditative concentration, shamatha, and wisdom, vipassana, as core components, right? Along with things like generosity, ethics, patience, effort.
Exactly. They are inseparable from the path. And the Sutra of Transcendent Wisdom in 7 humble stanzas offers a very direct encouragement. O Manjushri, Great bodhisattvas who practice discriminating wisdom will soon achieve perfect enlightenment. It highlights wisdom as the key driver.
Well, it's a staggering claim, really, but one that's consistently supported across these profound traditions. It showcases the immense potential held within this integrated path.
It is, and maybe a final quote to capture this from Gampopa, a great Tibetan master. He puts it very succinctly. The practice of Shamatha and Vipassana is the great gate to true reality.
The great gate to true reality. Powerful. It really presents them not just as techniques, but as the fundamental means to unlock our deepest potential and understand the nature of existence itself.
That seems to be the essential message, yes. It's the complete path, addressing both mind and wisdom, leading ultimately to the highest possible form of awakening.
Okay, expert, we've really explored the grand vision, the profound potential, the ultimate destination of these practices, enlightenment itself. But, as with any profound journey, understanding the practicalities, the terrain you're navigating, the potential pitfalls along the way, and the necessary preparations is just as vital as knowing the destination. And the sources we're drawing from, they seem to provide a remarkably detailed, almost like a user manual for this path, don't they? Outlining critical factors for success, common tasks we need to undertake, specific obstacles to watch out for, and even how to overcome them.
Indeed, they do. The texts don't just offer philosophy, they provide a very practical framework for actually navigating this journey, aiming to ensure that practitioners are well equipped for the challenges. They identify key conditions we need to cultivate, specific tasks we need to accomplish within the practices, common obstacles we should anticipate and recognize, and the precise defilements, those mental poisons that need to be overcome. It's quite a comprehensive guide.
Okay, let's break that down. Starting with the conditions for success. What foundational elements does each practice Shamatha and Vipassana rely on to really flourish? What helps them take root?
For Shamatha, for cultivating that calm abiding, the primary condition mentioned is proper behavior.
Proper behavior, meaning like ethical conduct.
Exactly. It suggests that a foundation of ethical conduct, leading a generally disciplined lifestyle, perhaps seeking out a harmonious environment, these create the most conducive atmosphere for achieving mental stillness. It's simply much harder to quiet the mind if your actions, your speech, your lifestyle are constantly stirring up internal conflict, guilt, or external chaos and drama.
Makes sense. Hard to be calm if your life's a mess. And for Vipassana, for insight, what's the key condition there?
For Vipassana, the condition highlighted is reflection and analysis. This really emphasizes the need for active engagement of the mind. It requires contemplating the teachings deeply, questioning your own assumptions, rigorously examining your experience. It requires an active, inquiring mind, not just a passive one waiting for insight to strike like lightning.
So ethical grounding for calm and an inquisitive mind for insight. Okay. And what about the specific tasks at hand for each practice? What are they fundamentally trying to achieve in terms of transforming our minds? What's the core job description?
Good question. The core task identified for Shamatha is liberation from the limitations of conceptual constructions.
Liberation from conceptual constructions. So freeing the mind from getting trapped in its own stories and labels.
Precisely. It's about freeing the mind from the incessant, often habitual generation of those mental constructs. The stories, the labels, the judgments, the narratives that keep us agitated, reactive, and bound within limited views of reality.
Okay. And for Vipassana, what's its main task?
For Vipassana, the fundamental task is described as the elimination of ignorance. And ignorance in this context is identified by the text as the ultimate root cause of all mental defilements and suffering.
Right. And ignorance here isn't just like not knowing facts, is it? It's a deeper kind of misunderstanding.
Exactly. It refers not to a lack of factual knowledge, but to that deep-seated fundamental misunderstanding of the true nature of reality, particularly the nature of self and phenomena, like their impermanence and lack of inherent existence.
So putting it together, Shamatha's job is to clear away the mental clutter, the limiting concepts. Vipassana's job is to cut the very root of confusing ignorance that creates all that clutter in the first place.
That's a great way to summarize the distinct objectives, yes.
Okay. But every path, no matter how well defined, has its pitfalls, its obstacles that can trip us up or derail progress. What specific challenges should practitioners be particularly aware of for each of these practices?
The texts are quite specific here, too. For Shamatha, a key obstacle mentioned is attachment to body and possessions.
Attachment. Why is that such a block for calm abiding?
Because such attachments, being overly identified with the body, worried about it, or clinging to possessions and status inevitably create mental preoccupation, craving, anxiety, and restlessness. They make it incredibly difficult to truly settle the mind and cultivate that stable, one-pointed concentration. The mind is constantly being pulled elsewhere, towards objects of attachment or aversion related to them.
Right, your focus is scattered by worry or desire. And for Vipassana, what's a major obstacle there?
For Vipassana, the key obstacle highlighted is the inability to reflect on the meaning of the teachings.
So if you can't engage with the ideas,
Exactly. If someone cannot or will not engage deeply, analytically, and contemplatively with the profound principles being taught about emptiness, impermanence, non-duality, etc., then true liberating insight simply cannot arise. It requires that intellectual engagement as a starting point.
okay. And are there any obstacles that affect both practices? Things that get in the way universally?
Yes, the sources mention a couple that are particularly pervasive and undermine both calm and insight. One is the tendency to waste time on insignificant tasks.
Ouch. That sounds familiar in modern life.
Doesn't it just? And the other is dissatisfaction, a general sense of discontent or restlessness. These are presented as universal distractors that drain our energy, pull our focus away from meaningful practice onto trivialities, and keep us perpetually tethered to superficial concerns and a feeling that something is lacking.
It's fascinating how practical and, well, timeless these ancient texts are, pinpointing specific mental states and even everyday habits like procrastination or dissatisfaction as real obstacles to deep practice.
They really understood the human mind.
And speaking of mental states, what about the particular defilements, those mental poisons that need to be directly addressed or remedied for each practice to progress? How does overcoming them ensure we move forward?
Right, this connects back to our earlier discussion on flexibility. The practices have specific remedies for specific mental states that block them. For Shamatha, as we discussed, the primary defilements that directly impede progress are excitement and anxiety. Those states of mental agitation, restlessness, conceptual busyness, they're the direct enemies of calm. Progress in shamatha is therefore directly ensured by diligently recognizing these states when they arise, understanding their causes, and applying techniques to eliminate or counteract them, gradually moving towards greater calm and stability.
So tackling agitation leads to calm. And for Vipassana, what are the specific defilements it needs to overcome?
Conversely, for vipassana, the primary defilements blocking progress are identified as sluggishness and stupor. Those dull, heavy, foggy, unclear mental states. They cloud the mind, make it incapable of sharp, clear, analytical investigation, rendering it impossible to gain that piercing insight.
So tackling dullness leads to clarity.
Exactly. The elimination of sluggishness and stupor ensures progress in vipassana, allowing the mind's natural clarity and intelligence to shine through.
And are there any overarching defilements that harm both practices?
Yes, the texts also identify passionate desire, strong craving or attachment, and the intention to cause harm, ill will, anger, malice, as fundamental defilements that poison the mind generally and therefore plague both shamatha and vipassana.
So basic ethical awareness and emotional regulation are foundational for everything.
Absolutely. It highlights the need for a comprehensive ethical and mental purification that really underlies all effective meditative efforts. These states of mind, strong desire and ill will, inherently disturb peace and obscure wisdom. They have to be addressed for either practice to truly succeed. Hashtag, outro.
Expert. This has been just an incredibly illuminating journey, hasn't it? Really revealing the sophisticated interplay, the deep connection between shamatha and vipassana. We've journeyed all the way from their foundational definitions through understanding their individual mechanics, tackling some of those common misconceptions about their order, and now finally seeing how they fuse into this single, incredibly potent practice aimed at nothing less than profound liberation. It really does feel like a shortcut to being genuinely well-informed about these powerful meditative traditions. It shows a path that's far more nuanced, more flexible, and maybe more accessible than many might initially assume.
Indeed. I think we've clearly seen that while shamatha provides that essential stable ground, the focused, unshakable mind of vipassana brings the piercing clarity of insight that makes the mind, as that quote said, unshakable like a mountain. They are ultimately two interwoven, indispensable aspects of a unified path. The texts really guide us not towards some kind of either choice, should I be calm or should I seek insight, but towards a dynamic integration, a synergy that addresses both the calm and the wisdom needed for true, lasting transformation. They remind us that the path is rich with detailed instructions, specific guidance on obstacles and remedies, yet it's also flexible enough to meet practitioners where they are. And ultimately, it leads towards profound freedom from suffering by cutting through both those conceptual delusions and the emotional turmoil that bind us.
Beautifully summarized. So what does all of this mean for you, listening right now? After hearing how these ancient practices work in tandem, allowing for both the deep purification of your mind and the generation of profound wisdom, I want to leave you with just a thought to ponder. In your own daily life, perhaps right now or later today, what inner turbulence, maybe a flicker of anxiety, a wave of dullness, or what subtle conceptual constructs, a recurring judgment, a limiting belief about yourself or others might you be able to just observe, even for a single moment, without immediately reacting or judging it? And how might just a gentle, focused attention, maybe just for a few breaths, a touch of shamatha, followed by a brief moment of quiet analytical inquiry into its nature? What is this feeling? Is this thought actually true? A touch of vipassana. How might that begin even slightly to shift your perspective? Could it create just a little more space, a little more clarity, a little more calm in your experience? Something to think about. Keep diving deep.